Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. As longtime viewers of this channel are aware, I like to talk about independent media on this channel, both because I think it's fresher than the mainstream stuff, and because I think it needs a lot more TLC, for lack of a better way to put it. Part of being independent means being out from all of the support systems that make it easier to get feedback and constructive criticism for the things you're doing. Of course, it also gets you away from all the financial and peer pressures that force you into conformity, but there is still a price to be paid for being out on your own. I try to provide as much constructive feedback as possible, but doing that does kind of create the mindset of what is wrong with a thing that we can improve on. And you know what? I think that's a very important thing to keep your eye on. But I also want to be looking for the new things that are going very well in the independent sphere. And every so often, I try and talk about those as well. And of course, I have recently talked a little bit about some basic comic concepts that I think really help a story come off the page and really hit the reader. Having every panel be a story and leading the eye. I eventually hope to do a video on visual language as well. It's an idea I talked about a little bit a long time ago, just when I was starting out on this channel, and I don't think I did the best job of describing it, so I'm on the lookout for a good case study to use. In the meantime, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can not just practice these things, but also bring them to the attention of other people. So today, I wanted to recognize an artist, or perhaps artists, who are doing that quite well. So this is the user known as Studio Nice on Twitter. The handle is Studio Nice 2011. I will include a link to the Twitter profile down in the description. Studio Nice is creating a series of 4-panel comics following the misadventures of an office lady and the dad joke-making co-worker she has a crush on. Pretty simple setup. Stories are relatively short and quick. And the jokes are not going to get a Netflix special, but they're still a good, wholesome, corny fun. This comic here is the first one I saw from Studio Nice, and it is the pinned tweet on their Twitter account, so I think it's the beginning of the series. We can already see a pretty strong understanding of the 4-step Kisho Tenketsu storytelling method here. And I don't know if that's deliberate on Studio Nice's part, but they seem to be heavily influenced by manga, so I wouldn't be surprised if they've heard of this formula in one place or another. But whether they're using it deliberately or not, it shows an understanding of the basic ideas that underpin any good piece of storytelling analysis. It has a good setup, it has a funny twist, and it delivers on a solid punchline, which is very important for a gag-focused series like this. But really, these steps are core to any kind of good storytelling. What's important here is that using this kind of format to develop them really lets you polish the techniques in a very rapid fashion. If you've watched this channel for a while, you may have heard me use the term the story circle, which is the constant iteration on storytelling as ideas and themes are taken from one storyteller to the next, polished, improved upon, or tweaked to fit a new set of circumstances or a new point of view. And while that is an important component of the story circle, at its foundation, the idea is to iterate on a story. And while you probably get the best results of having multiple people iterate on a story, if you just iterate on your own stories very quickly, you will see some improvement, not only in the stories you tell, but in your understanding of the various components that make them up, and in your ability to tell new stories that don't use any of those components just because you understand the underlying structure. Now, I'm not going to show all of Studio Nice's comics in this series, or any of the comics from their other series they have, which revolves around a policewoman and a drunken salaryman, also very funny. But as Nice begins to iterate on these different stories and work out different kinds of gags and different ways to deliver them, you see them become more sophisticated, you see new characters introduced, you see new takes on the basic genre, so to speak. And it is possible to do this because Nice is just doing 4-panel stories. And this is true regardless of the medium you work in. Whether you are a visual storyteller or a writer who works entirely in text, doing shorter stories and iterating on them quickly allows you to get better and better at your craft as you experiment with different elements. If NICE had to write, say, a 20-page manga every time they wanted to iterate on a story, they would not be able to play around with the elements as much as they do. Now, of course, there are plenty of stories that can only be told in a longer format. However, as I said when we discussed each panel being a story, you should be trying to maximize the impact of every step of your story. So by thinking of, say, 4 panels as a single page and telling a story across that, you can refine each step of a longer story and tell it with as much impact as possible. But what I really like about what Studio NICE has done here is they have told their story to an audience. They have put it out there for the world to see. Yes, they are iterating constantly, but they are also not afraid to do this in the public eye. These are not just throwaway sketches that they are doing and saving to their hard drive. They're sharing it with the world as an invitation to join in a bigger, longer, ever-unfolding story. There are elements of their ongoing stories you can only get on Patreon, and that is a very good way for an author who is looking to make an initial impact on the world to get good funding that will allow them to support themselves and buy better equipment. There was another writer several years ago, goes by the name Merriweather Media now, who did something very similar, actually using comic piracy forums as a method of distribution for their own original works, trading in exposure until they could get enough recognition that they could expand and better monetize their own operations. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but it is certainly innovative thinking in the space, and it is very difficult to get eyes on even a Twitter account like this. One of the reasons why I'm talking about it here. I think it is a great bit of marketing, a great bit of storytelling, and a great way to build an audience that more people should really study and learn from. By iterating quickly and in the public eye, you can not only build a rapport with an audience, but also build a connection between your audience and the story as it grows from a small, scrappy thing that's kind of figuring out what it wants to be when it grows up, tries to find its sea legs, into a bigger, more successful, more well-recognized story. I think that's a pretty neat thing to think about and a pretty neat thing to try and do. Is it for you? Maybe not. But the more tools you have in your work belt, the more chances you'll have what you need when you come across an obstacle. I know this is a trick I'll be keeping in my back pocket, hopefully to try when I have a little more time on my hands. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.